So look at this plot graph from last season which shows non-penalty XG plus expected assists, basically profiling how good a player is at creating high value chances for themselves and others against non-penalty goals. Dembele is way out in front as the leader, but out of the rest is actually Ademola Lookman, who ranks the highest for his non-penalty XG plus expected assists, whilst also recording a non-penalty goals rate higher than Mo Salah, Vinicius and Rafinha. And if we now go for non-penalty XG against non-penalty goals, solely focusing on goal scoring ability, Ademola Lookman is up there again, sitting third in line behind only Bradley Barcola and Jamal Musiala, whilst also overperforming his non-penalty XG by a sustainable rate, which the dotted green line shows. And so goal scoring wise, based on last season's output, Lookman is up there with the best wide forwards in Europe's top 5 leagues. However, he's more than just a goal scorer, as we can see here with expected assists plotted against both progressive actions per 90 and then progressive actions rate. He isn't seen as high with the front runners like Cherki and Alex Benya, ranking highly for both the main chance creating and ball progressing metrics. And when you glance through his FBref reports both from the Champions League and Serie A, when compared against either strikers, which FBref refers to as forwards, or attacking midfielders and wingers, the output that he's producing for his goal scoring, chance creating, ball progressing and dribbling metrics is consistently ranking in the low to high 90th percentiles. And it's not just this season but also in 23-24, both domestically and in the Europa League as well. And so in this video I'm going to be analysing what Ademola Lookman could bring to Manchester United if he was signed as essentially what would be an Alejandro Garnacho replacement, the key and unique attributes that Lookman has which sets him apart from other top level wide attackers as a goal scorer, as well as explaining how Lookman could aid United in a certain phase of play that even Mbeumo and Cunha can't to the same level. But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different currencies and retro jerseys, including the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season. They sent me over a new season Bruno Fernandes Manchester United shirt, as well as this 2006-2007 white Manchester United away shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, as well as this Zidane Juventus shirt from the 90s as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave a link in the description and in the comment section below. So I do think people have a tendency to overrate players based on them being Premier League proven, whilst considerably underrate players who are statistically proven. And in my opinion, unless you're going to drop 75 to 100 million pounds or more on a player who probably wouldn't even be attainable for most clubs this summer, I think Ademola Lookman at 28 in October for a reported asking price of 50 million euros, which is 42 million pounds, is an absolute steal for a player of his quality, given that he's only entering the start of his prime years, which should run until he's 32-33, maybe even longer into his mid-30s, and I think it starts to look like even better value for money once you consider that players like Kudus, Madueke and Elanga went for between 50 to 55 million, and Mbeumo and Cunha went for over 60. Now, unlike some others, I always like to start off by analysing a player statistically, because ultimately output is what makes a player effective, whereas the eye test can actually be deceiving, with people tending to overrate players who have aesthetically pleasing techniques, compared with players who are maybe more effective in terms of their output, but aren't as elegant and fluid with their technique, with the famous Hazard-Salah comparison being one that comes to mind. The eye test can also lead to cognitive bias, as let's be real, no one's watching a player every minute of every game in a season, and so your opinion of a player can be heavily influenced by a good or bad game, or even just a single moment during a game, leading to an inaccurate representation of their ability. However, statistics, as long as the sample size is big enough, are about as objective as you can get, and if you needed any more proof about how effective Lookman is in multiple different phases of play, then this key metric circle chart from this season pretty much sums it up. Top 1% for non-penalty goals and non-penalty XG plus expected assists, as well as the low to high 90s for everything else apart from progressive actions, which still sits in the 80th percentile. It's clear that Ademola Lookman passes the statistical test with flying colours, and even if you do obsess over players being Premier League proven, a statistical comparison with the likes of Cunha and Mbeumo shows that Lookman is producing output to such a level that he surely cancels that out. However, from the eye test, Lookman not only lives up to his statistical output, but I think you can also see that his skill set would make him the perfect player to play alongside Mbeumo and Cunha in a positionally fluid front three, and there are a few specific aspects of Lookman's game that could make him even more valuable than those two in certain situations. Primarily, Lookman likes to operate wide on the left, wherefrom he can receive the ball to feet, and despite having a technical aesthetic that is very similar to Jadon Sancho's, Lookman has the assertiveness, dynamism, and confidence in his game that Sancho lacks, able to glide past players when driving at them in 1v1s, float between challenges in congested areas with exceptional close ball control, quick footwork and fluid body movement, whilst also having a devastating burst of acceleration, which helps him not just break beyond defenders to receive a give and go, but also allows him to get into high value goal scoring positions as well, which we can see from these examples. So in this example, as the ball goes out to Ederson on the right side, you can see that Lookman is positioned on the outside of the Palmer right back on the far side, and when Cuadrado takes a touch to set up the cross, you can see that Lookman is on the edge of the box, still sitting fairly wide, but his acceleration and anticipation is such that despite Cuadrado's cross coming in with pace, he's able to accelerate into that area at the back post, connecting with the ball on his weaker left foot, volleying the ball first time into the roof of the net. In this example, we once again see the effectiveness of Lookman's anticipation and acceleration, as when the ball gets moved out to the left, you can see that he's initially positioned statically in the left-sided half space, but Lookman is already aware of where his teammates are and where the space is, as when the pass is about to go into Ederson, Lookman is positioned in front of the Genoa defender, but immediately when the pass is made, he suddenly springs into life, spinning in behind the defender in front, breaking goal side into the space to receive the pass from Ederson, wherefrom he has the composure and the technique on his left foot to feed a perfectly timed, directed and weighted pass across goal for Retegui to finish. And this brings me on to where Lookman could provide more value than both Mbeumo and Cunha, and that is against deeper defensive shapes. See, my concern with Mbeumo and Cunha playing alongside an advanced forward like a Gyökeres, Vlahovic or a Højlund is that United would have a front line where all three are a lot more effective during quick transitional attacks from the middle third, when there is space between the lines and in behind the back line, compared to when they're operating in tighter areas against the side sitting deep in their defensive third. However, Lookman is just as, if not more effective in these type of situations, having the acceleration to break in behind the back line, even when he's stationed in the final third, as we just saw in this previous example, as well as having the technical ability to be able to either dribble past players or thread incisive passes, specialising in 1-2 interplays around the box. Lookman might be one of the most effective players in the world against deeper defensive shapes, and would balance out Cunha, but specifically Mbeumo's greater effectiveness on the transition. I'll do a separate video going into detail about how Lookman's addition to the left of the front three could allow Matheus Cunha to develop into a world-class centre forward, due to Cunha's existing skill set, so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. But alongside his anticipation and acceleration over shorter distances, another difference between Lookman and Mbeumo, as well as most other top-level wide attackers, is his elite-level ball manipulation, ball control under pressure, and reactions inside and around the box. In this clip, the ball is about to go into the Empoli box, and Lookman is static back to goal with the defender tight behind him, but as the ball goes over his head, look how quickly he reacts, and accelerates to get in front goal side of the defender, and then when receiving an awkward bouncing ball under pressure, with a touch of his upper body, he sets up the half volley, connecting cleanly and finding the back of the net. And just like in the earlier example, it's this exact type of anticipation, acceleration and ball control under pressure which allows Lookman to record a high non-penalty XG, scoring at a sustainable rate, despite a lot of his goals coming from outside of the box, as his ability to get into and create chances for himself like this is as good as most elite level strikers, which can be seen by his non-penalty XG per shot, ranking just as highly as his other goal scoring metrics. Now in this clip against Napoli, the initial pass out wide to him is short, forcing him to halt his run and giving Di Lorenzo, the Napoli right back, the momentum. But look how Lookman is able to think quickly and use this to his advantage, simply touching the ball around the oncoming defender, and now he's racing at the centre back, pushing him back into his own box, but also has 3 or 4 players surrounding him, and even though Politano gets back to stop his run, leaving him completely boxed in at this point, his reactions and his technique on the shot is outstanding, drilling it first time hard and low with his weaker left foot into the bottom corner. Here against Real Madrid, the ball gets switched out to him on the left corner of the box. Lookman is able to bring the ball under control immediately, before stopping Vasquez statically inside of the box, one of his trademark moves, and even though in this example he doesn't use the overlapping run coming behind him, you can see from what Lookman does next how effective he could be with a powerful runner like Dorgu behind. But without even needing the decoy run, Lookman doesn't overcomplicate it or do anything fancy. He simply shifts the ball with one touch, opening up the shooting angle, before rifling the ball into the near post. And it's this sort of speed of thought and movement, ball manipulation and shooting ability of both his right and left foot that without doubt is going to win United games where most other players can't. And so in terms of individual current ability and output, I think Lookman is a level above the likes of Mbeumo, Cunha, Rodrigo and Rafael Leao, and up there with the best attacking midfielders in the world, such as Jamal, Vinicius, Cherki and Elise. I genuinely believe that he's that good at this stage in his career, and he deserves a move to a big club. And from United's perspective, he's only turning 28 in October, and so he'd likely remain at this level and be a key player until maybe 2029 or 2030, potentially even longer. He has such a complete skill set, I think he's more than capable of roaming centrally in a positionally fluid front three, and realistically, where else are United going to get this sort of quality for less than £50 million? To me, using Cunha or Xerxes as a withdrawn false 9 type with Mbeumo and Lookman either side, maybe also signing a cheaper, more traditional target man like striker to use during certain games and as a more direct option off the bench, at this point in the summer seems like the optimal way to build this attack. I am going to do a separate video analysing that fluid front three of Lookman, Cunha and Mbeumo, as well as looking at some underrated centre forward options that United could also look to bring in. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for that, let me know what you think of Lookman in the comments, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfever.co. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below, and if you want to sign up to my Patreon to get access to any of the plot graphs, the group chat, or my articles, I'll leave that linked on the end screen now as well.